I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
We say this is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
Are you a big Oat Bran guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
If you have a gallon of milk, I can also take home.
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah. Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
Andrew, we so rarely get a Tuesday game. We're usually talking about a Monday game on a Wednesday.
It's true.
And this week, we've just been blessed with not just a Tuesday game, but a memorable. This is for me. This is the yin to the yang that was the 73-point loss. This is like the flip side of that for this season, because putting up 150 on the Celtics. And listen, we've seen crazy stuff happen. The NBA is more competitive than ever. You'll see a team like Houston or Detroit have a random win, and you could just chalk this to another one of those. But when it's 150 points, that's special, Andrew. That was special.
The Thunder have never scored 150 points in a game. Never.
Yeah, in terms of like history. So 150 was their franchise record, and the previous high was in a double overtime game.
Yeah.
Which was 149.
49 in double OT.
In double OT.
Do it in regulation against. You could call some people think they're the best team in the NBA. Sure, you can call it that.
We will, for our purposes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was against the best team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
They scored 70 points in the paint, 74 points in the paint, which was the most against the Celtics this season. The 150 against the Celtics is the second most scored against the Celtics all time.
Yeah.
A team that has existed since 1946. That is the second most points ever scored against that franchise.
The last time somebody scored 150 on the Celtics was 1979.
What?
Yeah.
It was before we were born.
It's way before we were born. Before we were even thought of.
Before we even thought of.
Yeah.
They scored 48 in the third. That was a season high for a quarter.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most impressive part of the game, because you have that first half, which is amazing, but we've seen teams have these like crazy shoot. I mean, it's happened to the Thunder where a team has gone on just an insane shooting streak in a first half, and then they come back down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so you wondered if that was even one kind of expected Boston to make a significant run, and it just never happened because of that third quarter.
Yeah, they were unconscious.
There was one more stat that I looked up, but I can't remember what it is. But it was the five guys scoring 20 points each, which has only happened 18 times in NBA history, and the last time it happened was actually the CP3 team with like Dennis Schroeder and Gallo.
Yeah, that one makes sense.
It does make sense.
Gallo was at the game last night, and I was sitting like right across from him. I took my kids to the game last night and a couple of their buddies, and we're sitting right across from the Celtics bench, and Gallo's just sitting there in this giant suit with his knees just like up to like his mid chest, like the way he was sitting. It just looked hilarious. I had to take a picture and send it to you guys. It just looked, it just looked really funny.
It looks so uncomfortable. Incredibly uncomfortable.
It's like he just tore his ACL and he's sitting like that.
He looked
Poor guy.
like if everyone's seen the movie Coraline, Coraline's dad in that movie is just like this super tall, skinny guy. And just imagine cramping that guy into like an airplane seat. That's what poor Gallo looked like.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Thunder third quarter was ridiculous. They were 19 of 28 from the field. That's 67.9%. They were at 8 of 11 from 3. And Josh Giddey was like the story. In 9 minutes, he scored 17 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, and a steal. 3 of 4 from 3 on his own in that quarter. And we talk about like the 20-point quarters from Trey Mann. I don't know that even anybody's mentioned the 17-point quarter from Josh Giddey, which he was on one last night. He was incredible yesterday.
Yeah, he was very aggressive getting to the rim. And even when he wasn't converting on those drives, the defenders were bouncing off of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was so much stronger than him. And then he was taking, like, he had that like face up jumper, mid range jumper again against Al Horford, which I haven't really seen him take a lot of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, just getting to the rim. I mean, the whole team last night, and part of that was Time Lord was out, so they didn't have their best rim protector.
And also, they talked about how when they heard the SGA was out, that
they relaxed and took a deep breath.
Yeah.
Which that's a nice compliment in and of itself.
Yeah, to Shea it is. To the other guys, it's like, we don't know who the rest of these guys are.
Yeah. But even that said, like, yes, there were definitely plays where Boston just like was not playing defense. Probably the best example was when they let J-Dub just like get a rebound and go coast to coast, a la the Russ mask dunk from years back. Like,
exactly.
They weren't playing defense on that. But a lot of these like one-on-one situations were impressive by the Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, they weren't getting the help defense that they typically would get for the Celtics, but in terms of just like one-on-one matchup, the one that stuck out to me for J-Dub was when he went against Jaylen Brown and he went behind his back to get around him and then met him at the rim, got the bucket and the N1.
Yep.
I thought those were there was some really impressive one-on-one play, even acknowledging the fact that, Boston probably wasn't playing up to their like full standard. They weren't playing this like it was a playoff game.
No, I mean, the Thunder played with force from the jump. They were so good. I was impressed with so many guys last night with the way they played. Isaiah Joe. Did you know Isaiah Joe could dunk like that? I was even shocked. So he like tried a dunk.
Yes, he tried one.
Actually connected with it, and you were like, "Holy smokes! Like, how did he do that?" And then he actually converted one later on in the second half, and he even kind of laid on the ground like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that."
Well, it's
unbelievable.
It's wild to think like the Thunder have a surprisingly good roster of in-game dunkers.
Like, when you start shocking in-game dunkers.
Yeah, I mean, like Trey Mann, like very good in-game dunker.
Oh my gosh, when Trey picked Sam Hauser's pocket, which was awesome. He said something after the game about how like he didn't want the ball, and so he went and took it from him, and then dunked it in transition. It was just like, gosh, like that was great. But continue your list.
Shea, obviously, I mean, especially this season.
The two-handed, like they just have some juice to them. Like they have a lot more juice than just like and Poku does this where he'll just kind of just like place it in the basket with his hands above the rim. You know,
not a great in-game dunk.
No, they got some juice. You know, Shea's got some juice behind his dunks now.
Especially because the rest of Shea's game is so smooth and everything, and so you're always expecting him to do some like tricky layup, and then when he just rises up. Wiggins, I think, is a really strong in-game dunker.
He's not bad, yeah.
And then we obviously haven't mentioned J-Dub, who had like felt like he had 10 dunks last night. I was looking at his shot chart. He made one shot out of the restricted area.
Yeah,
not just the paint, the restricted area. Like he was getting to the rim at will, and so many of his attempts were just they weren't. Yes, he had some like open transition play attempts, but a lot of them were just really good cuts, or really he had some awesome 2-man game with J. Will.
Yeah.
He had a couple plays with him that I thought were great.
He had one like lefty high off the glass that was like, oh gosh, I don't know how he converted that one.
Yeah. The first J. Will assist, that was just a beautiful play. I was rewatching it, and J. Will at the high post, which when you have him there, he seems very comfortable.
Yeah.
He looked more comfortable in this game than he has looked up to this point.
Yes. When he can operate at the high post as a passer, he looks pretty comfortable when guys are moving around him. And that's what was happening all night. Was like the offense was just churning all night.
It was, and it's so, to think back, because that was one of the main criticisms of just like this franchise for the previous decade is like, oh my gosh, when are we going to add movement to the offense? We would always complain about that. And ultimately it didn't really matter because you had KD and Russ. So it's like, who cares?
Right.
But that play with J. Will, like there's a wave of cutters. It's like Dort's cutting first, then J-Dub's behind him. Meanwhile, Isaiah Joe is like tracing the arc coming from the corner. And Grant Williams is so scared of Isaiah Joe that he like goes out to try to guard him, leaving J-Dub open for J. Will. It was just a like very beautiful play.
Yeah.
And J. Will, and then there was that play with J. Will and J-Dub where it was a little bit closer to the basket, and he just gave him a handoff as he ran around him.
Mm-hmm.
That was some beautiful basketball, especially compared to the last two games. They had the same number of assists as they had in the last two games combined. They had 31 last night after having 16 and 15 against the Hornets and Sixers. It was just everything was working.
It didn't look like the same team, honestly. When I heard that Shea was out, I was just looking at these kids ahead with us. Like, boys, might be a rough one tonight.
Yeah, you would expected the flip of that final score.
Yeah,
that would have made sense to me.
Yeah, and then I mean, it just felt like the Memphis game. I went and talked to Joe Masato before the game, and because in all of the programs and even like advertisements around the arena, it says if you don't know Joe, you don't know the Thunder.
Yeah.
And so my kids were flipping through and they thought that was funny. They're like, we don't know Joe. We don't know the Thunder. And so we went by and I was like, you guys got to meet Joe so that you can know everything about the Thunder. And so we went and talked to Joe, and we were just like joking around about like Wiggins is starting, like this is really putting it to the test. If Thunder can continue to win with Aaron Wiggins as a starter, 7-0 with Aaron Wiggins as a starter. And Wiggs was asked about it after the game, and he just kind of laughed it off and like didn't really even know what to say. Basically, was like pretty humble about it. But it's just a weird one. It was just like the Memphis game where you thought, okay, like the Thunder are going to get pummeled in this one. Like this is going to be an embarrassment, and they win the game. And this was even that to like the nth degree. I mean, they were up by 37 against the Celtics team, which is a season high for the Thunder as far as a lead goes.
Yeah, they're up by 37, and there was barely even a hint of a comeback.
No.
Like, it felt like every single time Boston would make like 2 baskets in a row, OKC would always answer.
Yeah, they'd always
without fail
with a 3. I mean, they hit 23s last night.
Yeah, they were 50% from 3.
Yeah, it was
24
insane.
from 3, and then scoring 74 points in the paint. That's how you get up to 150. Because they shot 64% from the line. They didn't do well there. They could have potentially set the record. So the record against the Celtics is 164. The high for this season of any team was 153. So they were close to that as well.
I mean, that's just it's crazy that they were able to accomplish this. They actually missed both of their technical free throws from Marcus Smart throwing a hissy fit.
I know. Does that mean they should have brought him back? I mean, if ball don't lie, then if we miss both, then he should be allowed to come back into play.
That would be a hilarious rule. If both your technical free throws are missed, it has to be both. But if they're both missed, then you get to stay in the game. I like
come back
that a lot.
What did you? Since you were sitting kind of close, did you see what happened with Marcus Smart? Because his initial tech, I didn't understand why he got the second tech. Obviously, he like erupted after that, but I didn't really see why he got the second one.
He's just running his mouth. He's
Yeah.
just telling the officials how terrible they are.
Mhm.
And like, they're not going to stand for that.
He was peeved.
He was
Andrew.
miffed. He was miffed off at the officials.
You always wonder if the hold me back guy isn't there, which in this case was the Celtics coach.
No, Missoula, yeah.
Yeah, like what would he really have done? Like he was really trying to get to that ref.
He really was. There's no way he does anything.
That's
But
what I think too.
Knowing
But you got to have a hold me back guy.
Yeah, when you got the hold me back guy, it's like, all right, let's go. Let's act like something's really going to go down.
So Isaiah Joe, you mentioned him. He had 21 points, 17 in the first half.
Yeah.
These like the field goal percentages are just insane. He shot 8 for 13. Trey Mann 8 for 11. Giddey 10 for 15. It was great, and he was making some threes. You mentioned the dunks, but also just like he's just a good basketball player. It was very simple. It was very basic, but he got the ball outside the 3-point line, and I think it was Jason Tatum was closing out on him, and he attacked the closeout, got almost all the way to the rim, and then kicked it out to, I think it was Kenrich, a wide open Kenrich in the corner.
Yep.
And I don't even know if Kenrich made it, but it was just like one of those things that we've seen. We've had.
I'm pretty sure I remember the
Did he?
play.
Yeah. We've seen players in the Joe mold in terms of like that type of role player who just wouldn't have been able to do that, even though it feels like a very simple play, just attacking a closeout, making the obvious kick out pass to the guy who's wide open in the corner. And the fact that Joe can do that, and now you add on that he's a dunker as well, Andrew.
Yeah.
Like that's a very versatile ninth man or whatever he ends up being on this team.
Yeah, and he's only 23. It's not like he's 27 or something, like still trying to make it in the league. Like he's still a pretty young prospect in the league. Like Lou Dort's older than him, Wiggins is older than him, Lindy's like 2 years older than him, so is Eugene. So like he's still developing. He's averaging 1 assist per game too in his 30 games. So that's not nothing. I don't know if he makes it when it comes down to like the roster. I was talking to Joe Masato about this last night too. Like there's like and I talked about this on Monday on the Athletic Live Room pod, where there's like a real chance that they just cut ties with Darius Baisley. Either that's through trade or they just let his contract expire and then sign their first round pick. And like, this is the team.
And that's the team. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm anticipating.
Yeah. I'd be a little surprised. I mean, they could make some moves around the fringes. Like they could let Eugene or Lindy go and like do something with their 2-way spots. They may do something with Isaiah Joe, but he's so cheap that it's like, why not? You know, like why not keep him around? And then, because what I think would be cool is to just have this roster, add Chet, add your first round pick, and just like roll the ball out and just say, all right, we're competing for roster spots this year. You know,
and also at that point, and we're almost there already. But as that game was going on, I started to think to myself, like, as it got away, who is going to be our garbage time lineup? Like, who would you like back in the day? Remember Dakari Johnson? He was like our victory cigar. When Dakari's in, that means that we killed the other team.
Our victory cigar.
And Dakari's getting some minutes at the end. In this game, it was like, well, I guess we'll put J. Will back in, and I guess we'll throw Bays back in. It was like that was the garbage time lineup. And so if you come back next year, the team feels so much deeper than not just it was in the last 2 seasons, but even of like Thunder teams of the past. And obviously not as talented as those teams, but the level of depth where every single guy that comes in, you have some level of faith in, or at least like some buy-in with, where you feel like they're part of this project for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd like for them to keep this group, get Baisley out, get the first round pick in. And obviously not everyone that's on this roster, even adding the first round pick, is going to make it because they're going to have additional picks coming in the next year.
Yeah.
And guys are going to have contracts that come up, and you can't sign everybody. Not everybody can play. There will be guys on this roster that need opportunity somewhere else and that need to go somewhere where they actually can play. And like that's going to happen, like good players, up to now, it's like Teo Maladone and Ty Jerome and Vít Krejci and Isaiah Roby and Moses Brown, and like you're not like you don't have a pit in the middle of your stomach just like about like, oh, I can't believe we let that guy go. It's like, all right, cool, just let all those guys go. Like that's totally fine. If like Aaron Wiggins went somewhere else and was like really like started for somebody, like he was like the Blazers like starting 2 or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe we let Aaron Wiggins go. Or like Isaiah Joe goes somewhere and he's just like this 6-man bomber off the bench. Like, oh, like you can, there's going to be like players that will have to leave this team in the next few years that are going to make you feel a little bit more sick than like anybody else so far, just because they're going to be bringing in first round talent. Like if that Houston pick conveys and it's like the 7th pick, we got to find room for him, whoever it is. You got to find room for that guy. So
yeah. And well, not only that, so they have their own, they will probably have Houston's, they're going to have the Clippers.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
at this point, they probably will have the Jazzes, because the Jazzes is only the Jazzes. The Jazzes is only protected 1 through 10.
Yeah.
So if they're a decent team again, like they are this year, they might get that pick as well. That'd be 4 first rounders. That feels like consolidation.
Yeah.
Trade time.
Yeah. You'd think that you'd want to consolidate even just to move up like a couple spots,
or to move to future drafts.
Yeah. Or kick the can down the road for essentially for trade. Yeah. Yeah. That Jazz pick is becoming more and more interesting. It just depends on what they do with the roster. But if they kind of hold tight and pick and just are counting on these, I mean, you're feeling pretty good about Timberwolves picks down the road.
Did you watch the end of that Jazz game?
I've seen the shot. I didn't actually watch the game, but I've seen the shot.
Oh man, it was awesome ending, just because there was like zero defense, and so they were making every single shot leading up to that final one. If you didn't watch it, Lauri Markkanen, they did like a baseball pass length of the court. He took a 3 with 0.4 seconds left and was a split second late and made it. And the crowd erupted. Like they got the full experience of him hitting a game winner.
Yeah.
And then, 30 seconds later, they're like, no, that was not good. They've lost 5 games in a row, but they've all been by 5 points or less.
Yeah. I mean, they're still like crazy competitive. Like it feels like you look at the record and you're like, oh my gosh, they're on a slide. Here they come. Like they're going to tank now. It's like, not really. Like they're competitive every night. Did you hear Domas after the game?
Yeah.
He said? Yeah. He's like, I didn't think that he had time to get the shot off, but then it went down and, like we're the Kings. So just that he's saying we're the Kings. So, we're probably going to lose. It's just hilarious. So good.
Man, that game, I wonder how much that affected their point differential. I don't remember what it was yesterday, but it is now only minus 0.7, which is better than the Timberwolves.
Wow.
Who was the only team ahead of them before they get to play-in range. Better than the Hawks, the Atlanta Hawks.
Hawks are like so uninspiring, man. That game against the Warriors that they lost the other night, that was a wild,
awesome game.
Wild one. Yeah, the Thunder currently sit in offense and defense. Offense still not great, 22nd in the league, 111.3. Defense, they're at 11th at a 112.0. Yeah, 0.7.
Which is basically right where they were last season before everything, turned.
Yeah. They are 22nd in net rating, negative 0.7, tied with the Washington Wizards and ahead of like the Lakers, Hawks, Bulls, Magic, Houston, Charlotte, Detroit, and then the Spurs are -9 net rating.
So once again, this season continues to just be. I mean, I feel like it's week to week with this pod, where you could have a pod after every single game and you would feel completely different. I mean, I've officially given up. I mean, now that I kind of know how the season is going, like I fully expect them to lose to Orlando tonight, because that would make sense in my head now. Because you're coming off this awesome game against Boston. Oh, look, Franz Wagner's going to be out. Maybe they start a winning streak. So maybe it would make sense for them to lose, although it is a back-to-back, and it's a tough back-to-back because they had to fly from OKC. I don't know ever anything about this team, Andrew.
Yeah, predictions seem pretty tough these days.
What did Presti say?
Something about burning your assumptions.
And you did something with your predictions.
I need to look it up. It was really funny.
Somebody in the chat will tell us.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. Did you see this? This came from NBA Communications that Orlando Magic center Mo Wagner will be serving his 2-game suspension for his role in the December 28th on-court altercation when the Magic host the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight in the Amway Center.
So no Wagner.
Wagner will serve his second game of his suspension tomorrow night in the Magic's home game against the Memphis Grizzlies. He was initially scheduled to serve the first game of his suspension December 30th against the Wizards. However, NBA rules require that a player must be physically able to play in order to serve a league suspension. But Wagner was sick. And so I guess good job with integrity. Save your predictions, burn your assumptions. Thank you, Mitchell, in the chat. Is the quote. I guess
I never realized that was a Pearl Jam lyric.
Huh?
That's Pearl Jam lyric.
That is?
Yeah, I just Googled it, and it's Pearl Jam. Dance of the Clairvoyants, Mach 1 is the name of the song.
What album is that from?
Great question. How did I not know this?
I have not heard anybody say this.
Yeah, so save your predictions and burn your assumptions. Love is friction, right for comfort. Do you want me to read the entire song?
Please. Huh. This is the first I've heard of this. I mean, it makes sense. He's a Pearl Jam guy. I mean, he was at.
Is he? Okay, I didn't know that.
He was at the Pearl Jam concert here in OKC, and like got a shout out from Eddie Vedder on stage.
Really?
Over the summer. Yeah, he did. And like he got to like hang out with them, I guess, too. So that's wow. I thought that was a Presti original, but it comes from
what if it turns out everything he said is actually just a song lyric and we just haven't been Googling them?
I've got to Google his entire pressers now.
Yeah.
Like, word by word. Is this an Eddie Vedder lyric? Unbelievable. No, I didn't know that. That's
just crack the case wide open.
This is it comes from like a deep cut Pearl Jam song. Really funny. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. But yeah, no Wagners, not one Wagner will play tonight in Orlando. But I need to look at the injury report because they keep acting like Jonathan Isaac is going to play, which would just feel weird. Just feel strange to see Jonathan Isaac play basketball again.
This is so weird. So that Pearl Jam song, sorry, it was a 2020 Pearl Jam song. It was the lead single from their 11th studio album.
Wow.
So that was very topical when he said it.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Okay, so here's the injury report for tonight. Bol out in health and safety protocols. That's a bummer. Kevon Harris is out, suspended. Jonathan Isaac is out, still recovering from his knee injury 15 years later. Chuma Okeke out with the left knee surgery. Admiral Schofield out, suspended. Jalen Suggs out, right ankle soreness. And the Wagner's out, suspended. So.
And probably Shea. Did you say Shea? I'm assuming he's out.
I don't, excuse me. I don't know if Shea traveled with the team. They had to leave like right after the
immediately.
game, basically. I would assume, but I have to save those. Do I have to burn those? I have to burn those. I'm going to hold my prediction. I'm going to burn my assumption on that. I don't know. I would guess. So what happened yesterday is that Shea didn't feel well leading up to the game, tried to give it a go at, maybe like 4:00 or something like that, and just started feeling worse and worse. And so went home. And I don't even think he was at the arena at all. So
I wonder if he has the same thing that like Giddey and I think Bays had as well.
It's possible. And if so, then
it might be a few games.
He definitely will not play tonight. I would just, even though I should burn this assumption, I would assume that he's not going to play. So, but it'll still be interesting. Paulo Banchero against J-Dub, rookie
J-Dub.
Rookie battle. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk rookie rankings. We'll talk maybe some Andre Robertson talk. Who knows? We'll be right back. And we're back after that quick break. Andre Robertson is practicing with the Blue, which is interesting. I guess he has been practicing with the Blue for about a month now.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's practicing with the Blue so that he can be on the Blue. He's just kind of playing with them. I think helping out almost. So
do you think he might be in like their next coach pipeline?
I mean, you see like guys like Eric Maynor out there.
Yeah.
I think it is meaningful to the team to have guys that have been through like the Thunder program to join, So I don't know. I have no clue on that. I should save that prediction.
It'd been fun. Now that would have been a fun garbage time lineup if all of a sudden they bring out Dre last night. I feel like the crowd would have gone crazy.
He was at the game.
Yeah, so. I know. I feel like he's been at a lot of games recently.
Yeah, he has been at several. I don't know what's like the end game here for Andre, but he's been with the team for a little while, and his playing career is over, and so you wonder if he sees DJ White over there and is like, "Hey, why can't I be DJ White for the Thunder and help these guys out a little bit?" Because you remember he was on the team during Dort's rookie season, and you could always see him kind of coaching Dort up on like how, like especially during that Houston series. Like I just have like vivid memories of him like talking to Dort, like telling him like little things here and there. So Trey is very well liked and respected, and if he wants to coach and there's room on the coaching staff, which there's tons of coaches. We were standing there trying to get autographs with my kids and his friends, and like it was coaches and players running in and out of the tunnel. And like over and over again, they'd be like, "Who's that? Who is that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's an assistant coach. That's an assistant coach." It's like, oh my gosh, there are tons of assistant coaches. But yeah, I don't know. It could just Dre could just be bored and wanting to just hang out in OKC and like have something to do. I don't know.
Were your kids successful? Did you get any?
They got Mike Muscala.
Oh,
So the goal was to get Shea because Shea is like staying and signing almost everybody's stuff before the game.
Oh, really?
And so it was kind of a bummer to hear that he wasn't going to play. So Darius Baisley gave everybody but one person the cold shoulder, which was just weird. It must have been
So one kid got a autograph.
It had to have been someone he knew because he went over and signed someone's basketball and then like didn't even high five anybody, just like ran through. And then like Dort ran through and like high fived everybody. And then Kenrich had his daughter and his wife with him. And so he just kind of like high fived people and walked through. And then Mike stopped and signed for everybody. So my oldest son asked Mike if he was going to hit a shot at the end of the second quarter. Mike just started laughing. He was like, I hope so. I don't know. He's like, do you think I will? It's funny. So Sam Vecini put out a rookie rankings. Have you read this yet, Al?
No, did it just release?
Yeah, this morning.
Oh my.
On theathletic.com. You can go to theathletic.com/down-to-dunk and get The Athletic for $1 a month for 6 months. And you can read this article. You'll be feeling pretty good reading this article.
Wow.
Seeing these rookie rankings.
Wow.
It's impressive. He's third overall in the rookie rankings, just behind Paolo and Ben Mathurin. So what do you think about that? What's your initial thought since you're just hearing about this?
I mean, it sounds really high, but then you look at the names below him and you're like, yeah, I kind of get it. Like, who would I mean, I'm trying to be objective as a Thunder fan, but like AJ Griffin, okay, he's had a nice season. Keegan Murray, Jaden Ivey, Walker Kessler, Andrew Nembhard, Dyson Daniels, like who has obviously had a better season than J-Dub? I don't think any of those guys have obviously had a better season.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, you look at so Keegan Murray won Rookie of the Month for December.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stats between J-Dub, Keegan Murray, and Jaden Ivey, and Ivey's obviously in the Eastern Conference, but just looking at those three, and also Jabari Smith too, like their stats were all like very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
And it was it felt like a toss-up. Like, okay, they could choose any one of those three, whether it be J-Dub, Keegan Murray, or Jabari Smith, and you'd be like, okay, like I get it. You know, it's fine. J-Dub is like way more efficient than both those guys.
Oh my gosh. J-Dub's shooting, I think, 72% at the rim now.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to put that in perspective, that's 20 percentage points higher than Lou Dort. 20 percentage points higher.
It's awesome.
72%. In fact, I was looking at that website PBP stats.
Mm-hmm.
.com. They have a stat called, what is it called? Shot quality.
Yeah.
That attempts to predict like what a player's effective field goal percentage would be based on the quality of shots that they're taking. So like a wide open dunk is obviously going to have a higher chance of going in than a contested layup. And J-Dub, I mean, he's doing good. His shot quality, effective field goal percentage predicted would be 54%. He's shooting almost 56% is his actual effective field goal percentage.
Yeah.
Lou Dort.
Oh, no.
Lou Dort's shot quality. So this is what his effective field goal percentage would be predicted to be based on the quality of shot he takes. 56%, which would be better than J-Dub.
Yeah.
His effective field goal percentage is 48%. So 8 percentage points below.
Make you feel better or worse?
I guess we're. I mean, well, I thought last night was actually a good example. I mean, Lou had a good game overall. I think he was 8 for 15, 3 for 6 from 3. I think he was 4 from the line. So he had a good game. But the layups that he did miss, I thought were interesting because they were so wide open. They were ones where it was just like, I don't even know how he missed it. And I think that's like the difference in this, because he can generate really good looks for himself at the rim because of like how quick he'll take off to the basket, and then the strength that he has. He creates some really nice looks at the rim. They just have not been going down.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you feel good because his shot quality, I mean, it's career high right now, Andrew, based on this stat. But he just hasn't been able to convert them.
Yeah. I guess it makes me feel fine about it. I thought he played really well last night. He did overall. Yeah. I was impressed with Lou's game because you need somebody that's willing to take shots, and Lou is definitely one of those guys. So
yeah, last night I thought the shot distribution was, I had no complaints.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so J-Dub is in the 86th percentile for wings at the rim, shooting 72%. That is pretty awesome.
That's something. Yeah. I was in a group chat with some thundery people, I guess would be the right.
That sounds secretive, Andrew.
Yeah. I'll tell you who it was after the pod, now that I'm just thinking about it. But it's just you kind of have to temper your expectations on J-Dub, because like your mind can just kind of go wild, especially after a game like that, with just like the efficiency and the if it was all dunks, you'd be like, okay, but it wasn't all dunks. He had some pretty impressive finishes last night, and he's shooting 9 shots a game over the last, let's see, this is the whole season. 9 shots a game, 51.7% from the field. It's like, okay, can we get him to 15 shots? Like, what if he was at 15 shots per game? Because that's where Paolo is. He's shooting almost 16 shots per game. Like, what would he be doing?
What would he be doing?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how much? And obviously, the 3-ball is limiting him significantly because he's just not shooting the ball well. But if his 3-ball started to go in even at like 33%, not asking for the world here, like just 33%, and he's taking 12 or 13 shots a game, I don't know, like, why couldn't he be averaging 15 points per game like Mathurin has over the last 15 games?
Do you know what James Harden averaged his rookie season?
Oh boy. No, I don't.
9.9 points, Andrew.
There's definitely some young Harden vibes when it comes to this guy, with his pace, with how strong he is on the drive. Some of his passing stuff is really impressive, and he definitely needs to improve his shot. Like, what did James Harden shoot his rookie season from 3?
He shot 37.5%.
Yeah, like Harden is always a shooter. And so,
but you know what he shot from 2 his rookie season?
No.
42%. J-Dub is shooting 61%. So there you go. So point in J-Dub's favor. So they're back to being even.
That's a big point in J-Dub's favor. That's big time. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy with J-Dub, but rookies that do this and that are, I mean, he's a role player for this Thunder team,
Yeah.
He's not some featured piece. Like, he's a role player.
Thinking about Vicini's ranking, like, if Chet is really who we think he is,
yeah,
we can even take a little bit off. We'll just say, okay, maybe let's just say he's a top 5 rookie in the class. If they somehow landed 2 of the best 5 rookies in that draft class, I mean, that's the kind of thing that's the kind of thing that you kind of do all this for, in the hopes that you just nail a draft, and then that just sets you up for the next decade.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really got 2 high-level starters, like long-term high-level starters in one draft, not a lot else matters when you have Shea on the team as well.
It feels like they did. Like that's, and we need Chet to be healthy. We need him to show that he can stay on the court. And history says that he will. He's not been an injury prone guy throughout his life. So, and the rehab's going very well, and I guess even if it wasn't, I don't know if we'd hear about it, but what we do hear is that it's going very well. And I don't know, man, getting him at 12 is just pretty wild looking back at it. And you can find yourself like being like a pretty big homer, looking back at the draft, but there's just a lot of teams that really could have used a guy like J-Dub. And I don't know if it's,
and I think Washington's the most obvious one.
I mean, the most. Like, how much better do you feel as a Wizards fan if he's next to Bradley Beal?
He would be playing for them.
Oh yeah,
he would have been playing when they had all those injuries, like when DeLon Wright's out.
Yeah,
he would have been getting minutes.
Yeah,
I think you can justify everyone else, although I do think he would have been good on the Spurs as well.
Spurs.
He's a Spursy player.
Yeah, I mean, you can quibble with Dyson Daniels. Like Dyson's younger, like by like almost 2 years, I think, and he's going to be a good player, and he's got good size and length, and I think you're happy with him. I think the Blazers, obviously, they could use J-Dub more today,
but they would still probably take.
I don't think that they're like would punt on Sharp to take J-Dub if they could redo it. And then like Ben Mathurin, no. Jaden Ivey,
imagine someone the way J-Dub was talked about in the draft process, like even considering him at 5, the way we were talking about Jaden Ivey. So like now we're at the point where like it would have never even been on the team's radar.
No chance of it happening. He went higher than people thought he would at 12.
Yeah.
People were thinking that like the highest he would go would maybe be like 15, 16, or 17. That was kind of the range that he was in. And he had already like vaulted up from, I mean, he was like in the 50s to start the season, if not like undrafted to start the season last year. Where I was like, oh yeah, this guy's kind of cool. Like he's played well and he had a great season and vaulted himself into being a first round pick and then a lottery pick. And I mean, Sam even said it at their first presser, was that like Jalen Williams was beating down the door. Like he wasn't somebody that they'd watch for years and years. Like Ousmane Dieng is somebody they watched for years and years and like have had eyes on him for a long, long time. And they wanted Dieng as well as J-Dub, but J-Dub was somebody like late in the process. It was like, oh, man, like this guy's really good. He's really, really good. And, credit to Sam and his guys for wanting to take him there. Because, like, I mean, you wouldn't blame Sam if he took AJ Griffin or, like, Abaji was a guy that everybody thought was going to go before Jalen Williams, And I think Abaji's like a year older than J-Dub, so it's like not like a huge gap as far as age goes. But yeah, just an impressive start to his career from Jalen Williams, and I think he fits pretty well with the culture, like personality wise, and then obviously just the way that he plays is the way the Thunder want to play, and that the way the Thunder want to play was just on full display last night. Like,
yeah, for sure.
The cutting, the movement, like all of that is how they want to play. And if you can figure out a way to incorporate Shea and Chet and whoever they get in this next draft into that style of play, which is what they want, it's like, holy smokes. Like you've got, I mean, it feels like 2014 Spurs, with the way that they play. It's like constant movement, just churn till we get like the right kind of shot.
Or even within this season, we have not always seen that from the non-Shea lineups. Like for whatever reason, when Shea is on the bench but still playing in the game, it's not like those second units have been this, magical Spurs basketball. And yet we have kind of seen that in the games where Shea has been completely out,
Yeah.
like in the Memphis game and then in this game against
Yeah.
Boston.
It's like
I don't know what
to
that
do it
is, but like
they have
if
to do
they
it by
could just,
necessity, almost.
yeah,
Like we have nothing to fall back on.
I almost, yeah, for this season, I would be excited if they just figured out how to replicate that in just the non-Shea minutes when Shea is playing in the game. Because the non-Shea minutes have been a huge negative this season. And, we had questions early in the season about, Josh as like the lead ball handler in the second unit. Like it's not looking as good as we want it to look. But then you'll have games like that where it's like, oh, so it can work. All these guys can work together. And yes, part of that is them shooting 50% from three. Part of that is they're not being a rim protector on the level of Time Lord. But still, they can be better than they have been.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, you wonder how they can continue to incorporate that because it's not a constant thing. Obviously, if they were playing like that all season, they'd have one of the best offenses and they would like clearly be in the playoffs. If they played like that all the time. And so it's like getting these guys to play that way on a regular basis and really just making shots too, because that's the thing with this team, and like will continue to be the thing with this team is can they make shots? And last night they did. 23 pointers. Yep, that'll do it. Like that'll work. But yeah.
So since they had a big win, if you're a Thunder fan out there wanting to push for the play-in, you're probably feeling pretty good. So I want to ask you a question in that vein. Comes from the Discord. Durag Tony asks, what players are on your list of pushing the button players to trade for? So I would like to switch the question up a little bit and say, like, okay, the Thunder are going to push up the button. Okay, it's going to happen. Who is the worst player you would be willing to push the button for? Which means trading a lot of your draft assets and maybe even one or two of the young players. But who is the worst player you would be willing to do it for if they became available?
Do you have a list?
Well, he gave some of his.
Okay.
For instance, like Desmond Bane.
No.
You wouldn't push the button for Desmond Bane, Andrew.
No.
Why not?
I'd rather just continue to try to develop and see what happens with this team. I don't know. I like
push this button.
I like Bane, but I'm not pressing the button for Desmond Bane. Sorry.
Well, you're not going to push it for these other guys. So now I have to start getting better. Triple J.
I don't love his fit next to Chet.
Oh my gosh, Andrew. You hate pushing buttons.
I don't like pushing buttons.
All right, let's start at the top.
But why would the Grizzlies? I mean, the Grizzlies aren't going to do that anyways.
I know. I'm saying the worst player that if they became available, you would be willing to immediately, like at a moment's notice, say, yes, I'm all in. We got to put out our best trade offer.
Yeah.
Okay, so Luka.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you are sometimes willing to press a button.
Yeah. If Luka became available, got to.
Jaylen Brown.
No.
Andrew.
No, thank you.
You don't want to see this team. You don't want to see this team be good, Andrew.
Yeah, I do. But no on Jaylen Brown.
Now, that one I don't understand. Like, what more would you want? He's a big wing who can shoot and defend. You probably don't. You don't want him to be your number one guy, but he would not have to be on a team with Shea.
Yeah, I mean, personality-wise, I have concerns. Would just be like the player himself. Like, sure, like that kind of player, yeah.
I'm going to find someone worse than Luka that you are willing to.
I just have other concerns about him.
All right. I'm going to sort by points.
That's what I've done too.
I know you're going to say no to Trae Young. You'll say no to Dame, Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Some of these just like aren't realistic at all. Siakam, you're going to say no to. Okay, Zion.
I mean,
Oh my, come on. Push the button, Andrew.
the injury history is scary with Zion. Like it's if you're hitching your wagon to Zion, you are feeling I mean, he just keeps getting hurt.
I know,
And
but like this most recent one was a hamstring that like happens to any old player.
it's I mean,
It's not like
did
a
you watch
freak
the play?
accident.
Did you watch the play? Like he's just running.
Well, that's how it happens.
It just happened. I don't know.
All right. Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I would press the button for Ant Edwards. Yeah.
Wow, we got someone. Okay, let's go. We're on
So
a hot
much fun.
streak now.
He's so much fun.
LaMelo
He's young.
Ball.
LaMelo.
I don't know. That would be kind of a weird fit, but that'd be...
It'd be a weird fit. He definitely fits like the way the Thunder would like to play because he's such a good passer and he can shoot it from deep and he just kind of does everything.
Yeah.
I think I'd say yes to LaMelo.
Wow. Okay.
And he's super young.
Uh-huh.
And he's going to have a controllable contract. Like that matters too. Like when you're talking about Jaylen Brown, it's like, are we really going to have
he's
Jaylen
gone
Brown
in a year.
Yeah, we're going to have Jaylen Brown in Oklahoma City for the foreseeable future? Or like I wouldn't press the button for a guy that could or would theoretically ask out in a year or two. You know, like I don't want another Paul George like stopgap. And I don't think the Thunder do either. I mean, why would they want that?
I don't know.
I don't think they would.
A few more names. Anthony Simons.
No.
Okay. Bam Adebayo.
No.
Jalen Green.
Jalen Green. That's an interesting one, huh?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
I think I would for Jalen Green.
Oh, interesting. So it sounds like the younger I go, the more willing you're going to be. So like,
yeah.
What about Jabari Smith Jr.?
Jabari Smith Jr. Like, I guess it depends on what the cost is.
What if it's like Giddey and 2 firsts?
Ugh, no.
Okay.
I just don't think he's that good.
Paulo is going to be a yes, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Now that I'm figuring you out.
Yeah.
Last one.
Like, it's about controllable contract. It's about like, can these guys be here long enough to like stay and develop with this group? You know, because they're not ready. Like this Thunder team is not ready to like win big games. Like they're not ready to go win in the playoffs today.
Right.
And so adding a guy like Jaylen Brown's going to be pissed in like 2 months because like, oh, these guys aren't ready to win. You know why they're not ready to win? Because their average age is 22. You can't. Okay. You're just not ready to win yet.
All right. Stop yelling at me. Franz Wagner, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last one, Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Halliburton would be great.
So I figured you out once I asked you enough names.
Yeah, if we're talking guys that are like on their second deals already, the Thunder aren't. It's hitting the button. The only way that I would hit the button is if it was for another young guy. If you're pressing the button for a player that will propel this team, but won't be the best player on the team, then I'm like totally out on that. Like I'm totally out. If you could trade for a player that's going to be your best guy, like Luka, or if like suddenly Giannis became available and he was like, yeah, I'd be willing to go to Oklahoma City and play there. You'd be like, Jokic. Yeah, like just do it. Yeah. Nikola Jokic became available. Yes. You just say yes. You know, you do that for a top 10 player. If they're a top 20 player and they're on their second deal, I just think the answer should be no. So Bam Adebayo, are we confident Bam Adebayo is going to want to stay in Oklahoma City for the next 5 to 7 years?
And this question, or the answers to these questions, change in like 4 years. Like once this team is 25 years old average,
then they're ready to win. Then you're ready to win basketball games at a high level. Then you can go and trade for somebody. But like you just see part of the reason why things are just so chaotic in Atlanta is because they pressed the button too early for players that were good, but propelled them further than they should have been at the time, like on Danilo Gallinari. Like, what in the world are they doing trading for Danilo Gallinari whenever Trae Young is still young? It's like, what are we doing here? I mean, all they did was push their timeline forward, and then it slid back just because the guys they got just couldn't maintain how good they were, and they had like this false hope for the future of what they were going to be. That's what like trading for some of these guys would be, because one, they could just leave, they could ask out, and you could get your assets back or whatever, but then you're just like back in the same place. But maybe you did go to the playoffs one year and you lose in round one because you have Jaylen Brown, but then he asks out in the summer. Great. Now we're having to rewind again back to where we were, but now there's fan expectations behind it. And that's the problem with Atlanta. Like, if Atlanta was this team this year, but they didn't have all the expectations that were placed on them by going to the conference finals a couple years ago, like, that's part of like the dissonance and like this like frustration that's occurring in Atlanta, is that they have expectations placed behind the organization. And now, like, we have to figure out, like, how do we get back there? Like, how in the world do the Hawks get back to the conference finals in the next like 2 or 3 years even?
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
It sounds impossible. But like, that's what happens when you place expectations by making these early trades for your team. And like, they got lucky that year. And it takes luck sometimes to get to the conference finals, but they got so lucky that year making the conference finals. It took like an epic collapse from that Sixers team for them to get there. And they got there. Congratulations, you did it. But now you have expectations. And when you lose in round one, like if the Thunder lost in round one in 2 years, we'd all be standing up and clapping for them. You know, it'd be like when they lost to the Lakers in round one. It's like, great. Okay, great start. The Hawks lost in round one last year to the Heat, and you're like, oh my gosh, no one's clapping. Everybody's booing. It's because of expectations. And so, like, this is why you don't press the freaking button early, because it could give you a false sense of where your team is, and then that can be stripped away from you just because of player movement in the NBA. And this is why I wouldn't trade for anybody that's not on a rookie scale contract today. So, anyways, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that was a good answer. I think people needed to hear it, Andrew. Needed for you to explain your thoughts, because it might sound a little crazy at first. You know, turning down some good players.
Yeah, I think people probably think I'm a little crazy, but I think the direction that the Thunder are heading is the right one. And we have heard nothing from Sam when he talks to the media that he's going to do anything other than a slow rebuild with these guys. And you have to feel really good about that. Just like we talked about, like, they have 2 of the best 5 guys in this draft at the end of this. I mean, that could be enough to propel you in the next 3 years to where you want to go. And then we're not even talking about the Thunder's own pick this year, the Houston pick the next year. Like, we're not even talking about any of those yet. We're just talking about what they have today, which is Shea, Giddey, and 2 of the best 5 players from the draft in 22. That could be enough to get you where you want to go. Honestly, it could be enough. But then, like, you keep adding on to it, and then it's like, oh wow, okay, this could get real pretty fast. And then, not only do you maybe not want to push the button, you may just need to not push the button so you have enough, cash to pay these guys.
Yeah,
that's
true.
what the Thunder had to do the first time around. Is like, we just need to have the cap space to pay these dudes, and ownership is gonna probably pay the tax again because they're saving a ton of money. And if you don't know that the Thunder are making money during these years where they're bad, like, this is the easiest time to make money. The Thunder actually, when they were winning, were losing money, and when they've been losing, they've been making money. So like now they're like saving money up so that they can pay the tax again when they get good. But you have big decisions to make. If somehow Ousmane Dieng became a good player, like if that happened, and it was like, oh my gosh, Usman Jang is like a fringe all-star, and they're gonna have to pay him. It's like, okay, well, good thing we didn't trade for X player making $30 million, because now we've got to pay our guys. That's just, that's, you just don't know. And this is like this. There's so many reasons why you don't do what Atlanta did, and I could talk for like an hour probably just on that alone, on why you don't push the button, and like why it's like really wise of Sam and his team to not do that.
So let me ask you a semi-related question. Let's say OKC is in the position that Memphis was last year, where they're incredible in the regular season. They win a first-round series. Shea goes out in the second-round series. Maybe you feel like you could have won that. As Memphis, looking back and seeing how good KD is now, would you have been more aggressive going after KD in that position, or would you have still stood pat, which is what they did?
I guess it just depends on what the cost was and like who they're asking for. Because I like what Memphis has, and like Durant's age is like the thing that I'm like, I don't know if I would do it. Just because having a good contending team in Memphis for like a decade, which is definitely possible, like the value that adds to your community is like, it's ridiculous. Like it just brings so much. Like it's what the Thunder had here. The fact that the Thunder were contenders for a decade, essentially, it changed the city. Like it absolutely changed Oklahoma City and the trajectory of the city forever. And so adding Durant, you win a title, that also changes the trajectory of your city too. But if you can do it without giving up Ja, Triple J, or Bane, which I don't know that it's really realistic.
You'd have to give up probably Bane at the minimum.
Yeah. Would I give up Bane and picks for Durant? Probably so. Because then, like, if you have Ja and KD and Triple J and Steven Adams and all, holy smokes. Like you might, especially in this Western Conference, when it's like, who's the team in the West this year?
I think about Toronto, who, all we heard all summer was how like Scotty Barnes was completely off limits, which maybe that ends up being a really good decision. But
yeah, it could end up being a great decision. Also, seeing how Toronto's played too, like they're not a Durant away from being a contender.
Probably not.
Like they're a Durant plus Kyrie, this version of Kyrie away from being a contender. And maybe
who knows? They maybe could have gotten both.
Maybe
this summer.
You do that, but that's easy to say today as they're on this like crazy win streak and whatnot. But yeah, I mean Memphis is obviously steps ahead of where the Thunder are, and so I just don't want to hit the fast forward button on this team. You want to see it marinate. You want to also, like, there's this part of me that's like, I want to see Sam's full, like, psycho behavior, tanking plan just fully do its work,
Yeah, let it play out.
Let it all play out, because the Sixers had everything stunted because the league stepped in, and then you got Brian Colangelo, and it's just like this absolute mess where it's like they had this like beautiful process happening, and the league put a stop to it and stepped in and ended it all, and it ended up just kind of like fumbling, and like they're still really good because they have Joel Embiid, and that's great, but they didn't get to actually do the process. Like this is the stunted process.
Yeah, but to be fair, you can already see the difference just in draft strategy between the process and Presti.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's not apples to apples. You're right.
Like Hinkie got screwed by the league, but he also screwed himself by just not. He did the complete like BPA every single time in the draft, whether it was Nerlens or Embiid, which obviously worked out, or Jahlil Okafor, which was the big one. Ben Simmons, like he did not draft as well as he needed to
Yeah,
to make that all work.
true.
And the whole point of this is that like you're going to take some swings and you're going to get more swings than you need, so it's okay if you miss every once in a while. But if he just hits on like one more of those picks, I feel like things he could still be there.
Yeah, Yanni in the chat says the Sixers process feels a little bit more of what the Rockets are doing.
Yeah, I
It's
would
just
agree
like,
with that.
yeah. I want to see this all play out, because if the Thunder like somehow get crazy lucky with their own pick in this next draft, or with the Rockets pick in the following draft, and they get like the 6th or 7th pick, I don't know. Like if the Thunder just got crazy lucky and got the 1st or 2nd pick in this next draft, like we're not talking about trading anybody or anything. Like you're more talking about like, okay, who's not going to make it on this roster, because someone's not going to make it because they're bringing in more talent as like we go along. So I don't know. It's exciting to watch them win like they did last night, but you have to let it not get you excited to want to like, I think excitement like this can make you think like, oh, like we're ready to go. Like, let's go get somebody. Let's get somebody at the trade deadline. Let's do this. Let's do that. Like, let's get going. To me, it's like, oh man, it just makes me excited that like the process is working. Like what the Thunder have wanted to do. Like 2 years ago, I think you think, like, I have no clue if this is going to work. Like, I have no idea if this is going to work for them. You know, especially they fall to 6th in the lottery, and you're like, oh no, and they lose that Rockets pick because like you had dreams of like 1 and 5. You're like, oh man, like that could be it. Like then we're just like we're on it, like we're ready to go, and then they get pick 6 only. You're like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if this is gonna work. You know, and they get Giddey, and that's great, and he's a good player. He's been awesome lately. Giddey's been amazing. But then like they do what they did in this last draft, and it's like, oh, okay. Like you feel a lot more confident today that it's gonna work than you did even a year ago. You know, with
Dude, Giddey's shooting. Like we've been doing the thing where it's his December stats. Now we kind of just are adding on to his December stats because it's been so good.
Yeah.
We're to the point now where you can just take out the first 4 games of the season and he's at 36%. The first 4 games and he's already
Seriously,
at 36%.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah,
so
the last 15 games from 3, he's 45% in the last 15 games. And he's not just like taking wide open jumpers, like he's taking shots with a hand in his face. And he's looking like he's never been not confident. Like that's to me, like people are like, oh, I'm so glad he's so confident. He's never not been confident. You go watch his tape from pre-draft. It's like that's what sticks out the most is like this guy is the most confident player on the court. Like his confidence just never ever wavers, and it didn't even waver last season. When he's shooting 26% from 3. But I don't know. I don't know what to believe with the 3 ball yet. This is great. Like this is incredible. 36% was like, oh my gosh, if he's at some point in his career could do that, that would be amazing.
Well, and it's not just the 3; it's just his scoring overall. I was looking at his box scores. He scored 20 or more in 4 of the last 5 games.
Yeah,
which I can, without looking it up, I'm assuming that's the first time he's done that.
Another reason not to push the freaking button. Like give Giddey room to develop. I feel like we're not quite caught up to how good he's been this season. I feel like you have to like read stats like you just did to like make you feel like, oh, okay, like maybe he is good. Like he's been very, very good. I mean, you look at just the guys in his class, and I mean, he's been one of the better sophomores this season.
In a loaded class.
In one of like a class that might be like an all-timer, like a 03 type of class.
Yeah, James Anderson in the chat brings up he's currently shooting better from 3 than Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, and Evan Mobley, and is only 0.4% behind Franz. So he's like right there with all these guys. And
Yeah.
we think of him as like the worst shooter potentially of all those guys, other than maybe Scotty Barnes.
Right.
And he's right there.
Yeah. I mean, he's almost shooting the same percentage from the field as Franz on the season. He's 47% to Franz 48. Jalen Green's shooting 41% from the field. Scotty Barnes is 44% from the field. Like, he's doing some impressive stuff, and I don't know that he's quite getting the shine that he deserves on the season. But I mean, this is such a good class. I mean, like, Cade obviously is somebody that you kind of have to leave in like the top 5 of this class just because. But then like Evan Mobley, who like Giddey's scoring more than Evan Mobley, and a lot of that's just a product of like who Evan Mobley's playing with. But like Giddey is like similar rebounding numbers, better scoring numbers than Evan Mobley this year.
Yeah.
Like Barnes, like he's just had a lot better season than Scotty Barnes has this year. He and Mo Wagner, like Wagner's had a better season than Giddey, but like, it's not impossible to think that Giddey could end up being better than Wagner. And even if he's not, like, that's okay. But, getting one of those guys and, not taking Jalen Suggs, for instance, which I would have advocated for, at the time, and just watching him play recently with Shea and him using his size and hitting shots from deep and kind of playing a like ultimate connector role has been impressive. So, all right, long pod today. Thanks so much for listening.
Game
fun.
tonight.
Another game night. Join us on the Discord.
Yeah, the Discord last night, it was hot. It was hot. There were a lot of people there, and we had a great time because it was an awesome game. And yeah, come join us. We're almost at 700 Discord members.
Hey, let's get to 700.
Not to toot our own horn, but it's more than the Glue guys, who are the people that that's where I learned about Discord, from listening to the Glue guys.
Hey, toot.
So shout out to them. Maybe we can get into a pod war with them where we try to get more Discord members. But yeah, it's been very fun. I've been enjoying watching the games on there, and please come join us.
Yeah.
And by the way, Andrew, if we win tonight, we will match John Hollinger's preseason prediction win total for the Thunder at 17. Very exciting.
It's a yearly tradition where the Thunder eclipse John Hollinger's prediction for them quite early. It happens almost every year. So great tradition to follow for OKC. Thanks so much for listening to our pod. We'll be back with another edition of the Friday podcast, and we will talk to you guys again on Friday.